Have you ever woken up at 3 a.m., your chest heavy with the memory of a past mistake, a failed business, a broken marriage, or words said to your children that you wish you could take back? We often carry these scars like a life sentence, labeling ourselves as failures. But what if I told you that you didn't fail? You were simply receiving valuable information from the universe. Welcome back to Buddha Essence Wisdom. If this message touches your heart, please subscribe to join our community of 60+ souls seeking peace. Your support helps me continue sharing these seeds of tranquility. At this stage of life, we tend to judge ourselves harshly. In Buddhist wisdom, we call this the second arrow. The first arrow is the actual mistake. It hurts, yes, but the second arrow is much more painful. It is what we tell ourselves: I'm terrible. I always ruin things. This is when we turn a temporary event into a permanent identity. Imagine a gardener whose seeds don't sprout. Instead of sitting down and shaming himself for being a bad gardener, a wise gardener examines the soil, the water, and the sunlight. In Buddhism, your stumbles are exactly like that. They are not punishments from the heavens. They are clear guidance showing that certain conditions in your life were out of balance. Perhaps you lacked rest, the pressure was too high, or your expectations were simply unrealistic. When we stop sentencing ourselves for our mistakes, we gain the clarity to learn from them. Failure is actually a devoted teacher quietly revealing what we couldn't see before. But how do we truly begin to look at ourselves with compassion? And why does clinging to a fixed identity make us age in suffering? Join me as we cross the next threshold of awakening, where we explore how to shed the labels we have worn for far too long. Have you ever found yourself saying, "This is just who I am," or "I'm too old to change now"? Many of us in our 50s and 60s carry a set of invisible conclusions about ourselves that feel like solid facts. We tell ourselves we aren't disciplined, or we've always been an anxious person. But in the light of Buddhist wisdom, these are not truths, they are simply attachments. When a thought arises saying, "I am too old," your mind often treats it as a permanent identity instead of a passing experience. Once a limitation becomes your identity, you stop questioning it, you stop observing it, you start defending it as if it were your very soul. I want you to realize something profound today. You are not your thoughts, you are not your habits, and you are certainly not the stories you repeat about yourself. These are merely mental events that arise and pass away like clouds drifting across a vast sky. The moment you confuse a passing thought with who you really are, your suffering deepens because every challenge begins to feel permanent. Think of it like this. If you label yourself a bad sleeper or someone who can't learn technology, you freeze a temporary condition into a frozen statue. But you're not a statue, you are a living, breathing process of constant change. You don't need to fight these thoughts. Simply observe them. Recognize that "I'm too old" is just a sentence appearing in your mind, not a boundary on your life. When we finally stop fighting who we think we are, a beautiful space opens up, a space for understanding and quiet change. But how do we navigate the discomfort that comes when we try to break these old patterns? Let's talk about why feeling uneasy is actually the greatest sign that you are finally waking up. Most of us have spent decades building a comfort zone, a set of familiar routines and predictable reactions that make us feel safe. When we finally try to break a habit or adopt a new way of thinking, we often feel a sudden wave of unease or anxiety. Our instinct is to step back, assuming that because it feels wrong or uncomfortable, we must be on the wrong path. But in the quiet wisdom of Zen, discomfort is not a warning sign of failure. It is a signal of expansion. I want you to imagine a seed deep in the earth. For it to become a tree, its shell must first crack open. To the seed, that cracking must feel like the end of the world. But in reality, it is the only way to grow. When you feel that inner resistance or fear while trying something new, whether it's learning to meditate or choosing to forgive someone after years of resentment, that is your old ego losing its grip. As a specialist working with those over 50, I've seen that we often mistake familiarity for peace. But staying in a familiar pattern that causes us pain isn't peace, it's just a cage. The discomfort you feel is simply awareness touching an old attachment. It means you are finally challenging the fixed self you've carried for years. If you never feel uncomfortable, you aren't growing in awareness, you're simply protecting your old habits. So the next time you feel that flutter of uncertainty, don't run. Stay present with it, smile at it. It is the feeling of your spirit finally waking up. But this journey of growth isn't always a dramatic battle. In fact, real transformation often happens in the most silent and visible ways. Let's look at why you shouldn't be discouraged if you don't see results right away, and how to honor the quiet progress you're making. Every year, millions of people tell themselves the same quiet sentence: this year will be different. We turn the calendar, set new goals, and for a brief moment, hope rises. But slowly, something familiar returns: old reactions, old doubts, and the same way of seeing the world. Before long, the new year begins to feel exactly like the last one. Why does this happen? It's not because we didn't try hard enough. It's because nothing truly changed at the source. In Buddhist wisdom, suffering does not repeat because time moves forward. It repeats because the mind remains the same. You can move to a new city, you can change your daily schedule, or you can even buy a new house. But if the way you relate to yourself stays unchanged, the cycle quietly continues. The same fears will simply appear in new situations. The same inner patterns will recreate the same familiar outcomes. I want you to imagine a traveler carrying a heavy backpack. He changes his shoes, he changes his path, and he even changes his destination. But he never takes off the backpack. He wonders why he is still tired no matter where he goes. That backpack is your old way of thinking, your old self-image. Real change does not begin with external effort. It begins with awareness. Awakening is the moment you stop running on autopilot and start noticing the thoughts that drive your life. Awareness is the key that finally unlocks the door to the cage. Without it, no new year is ever truly new. So how do we begin to cultivate this awareness in our daily lives? It doesn't require a dramatic life overhaul. In fact, it starts with the smallest, most quiet actions you can imagine. Let's explore the simple, micro practices that can transform your 2026 from the inside out. Often we feel overwhelmed by the idea of transformation. We think we need to make dramatic changes or climb a mountain to find peace. But in Buddhist practice, we don't start by trying to change the whole world. We start by noticing a single breath, a single thought. I want to give you a very simple exercise for your 2026. Sometime today, I want you to sit quietly and notice just one sentence you often repeat to yourself. Perhaps it's, "I'm not disciplined," "I always give up," or "I'm too old for this." When that thought appears, do not argue with it. Do not try to force yourself to think positively. Simply recognize it for what it truly is, just a thought. It is not a fact. It is not a permanent part of you. Just by saying to yourself, there is a thought that I am not disciplined, you create a small space between you and that limitation. The ego often finds small actions unimportant. It wants big, loud results. But real lasting change is built on micro moments of presence. Just 5 minutes of quiet attention each day, one mindful choice or one pause before reacting to a criticism is more than enough to begin the shift. Remember, a seed does not struggle to become a tree. It simply unfolds when the conditions allow. By practicing these 5 minutes of awareness, and you are creating the perfect conditions for your own spirit to bloom. But as we embark on this path of small steps, we must also learn to embrace a deeper kind of wisdom, one that is particularly beautiful as we reach our golden years. It is the wisdom of knowing when to stop doing and simply learn to be. Let's talk about the profound peace found in the art of non-action. As we move into our 50s, 60s, and beyond, many of us carry an invisible exhaustion. It's the weight of a lifetime spent trying to become someone or achieve something. We have spent years measuring our worth by our productivity, our roles, and our results. But I want to share a secret with you. True wisdom at this stage of life is found in the art of non-doing. In the West, we are taught that doing nothing is a waste of time. But in Zen, non-doing is the highest form of presence. It doesn't mean being lazy or passive. It means showing up for your life without the desperate need to control every outcome. I want you to imagine sitting by a river. You don't try to push the water to make it flow faster. You don't judge the leaves for drifting by. You simply sit on the bank and witness the flow. When we apply this to our own lives, we stop fighting against who we think we should be. We stop trying to fix our feelings or manage our legacy. Real peace arises when you can sit with yourself with all your imperfections, your memories, and your uncertainties, and simply say, it is okay to just be. By letting go of the attachment to results, the heavy burden of trying finally drops away. You aren't a project to be finished. You are a living experience to be enjoyed. When you stop trying to steer the river, you finally have the energy to enjoy the view from the boat. This brings us to the most beautiful realization of all the truth that allows us to stay young at heart, even as the years pass. It is the understanding that because nothing is permanent, every single moment is a fresh beginning. One of the most misunderstood teachings in Buddhism is impermanence. Many people hear this word and think only of loss of things ending, of aging, or of saying goodbye. But for those of us seeking a better 2026, impermanence is actually our greatest ally. It is not a warning, it is an opening. The Buddha taught that nothing in you is fixed, not your fears, not your weaknesses, and certainly not the habits you've struggled with for decades. Everything is constantly changing moment by moment, like the cells in your body or the breath in your lungs. Most of our suffering comes from treating what is temporary as if it were permanent. When you say, I am bad at this, or I am an anxious person, you are freezing a passing condition into a solid identity. But I want to share a simple, powerful tool with you. Whenever you notice a limitation in yourself, just add one small word, yet. I haven't found peace, yet. I don't know how to let go, yet. By adding that one word, you stop declaring permanence. You align your wisdom with reality, the reality that you are an unfinished masterpiece, a flow of potential that never truly ends. Your life is a river, and a river is never the same from one second to the next. As we look toward 2026, Remember that you don't need a new calendar to become a new version of yourself. You only need a new relationship with your own mind. 2026 begins the very moment you notice a thought without believing it, or a mistake without turning it into a life sentence. From that moment, the cycle of suffering loosens and space appears. Space for understanding, space for patience, and space for a quiet, beautiful change. Take a moment now to sit with these reflections. If this message touched your heart, please subscribe to join our community of 40+ souls seeking peace. Your presence here makes our journey together more meaningful. I would love to hear from you. What is one belief about yourself that you are ready to loosen today? Leave a comment below. Let's walk this path together. Thank you for being here at Buddha Essence Wisdom. May you find peace in every breath, and may your journey be filled with light.